The quarantine shield shimmered around Dr. Ileana Mercer's shuttle as it descended through Silara 7's amber atmosphere. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the craft's climate control. This was her first solo mission as lead xenobiologist, and the stakes couldn't be higher, an entire sentient species facing extinction from a mysterious neurological disease. Final approach to landing zone, announced the shuttle's AI. Atmospheric composition within human tolerance, quarantine protocols active. Ileana checked her biohazard suit one last time. Her hands trembled slightly as she sealed the gloves, not from fear of the disease but from the weight of responsibility. The Stellar Medical Corps rarely sent lone physicians to quarantined worlds, but the urgency of the Velari distress signal and her specialized background in nerve tissue regeneration had made her the obvious choice. Just breathe, she whispered to herself as the shuttle touched down. Through the viewport, the alien landscape came into focus. Crystalline structures that might have once been beautiful now stood dulled and cracked like shattered hopes. As the airlock cycled, Commander Paz's voice crackled through her comm from the orbiting research vessel Hippocrates. Remember, Dr. Mercer, observation only, no intervention without full bioscan clearance. Copy that, she replied, knowing that regulations might need to bend if lives were at stake. The airlock door slid open, revealing a settlement that resembled a botanical garden overtaken by geometric architecture. Structures of luminescent crystal and living plant matter intertwined to form dwellings, now dimmed with disease and neglect. Ileana had taken only 3 steps when a small figure darted from behind a wilting structure. The child, unmistakably young despite its alien features, had skin like opalescent petals and eyes that seemed to contain entire nebulae. 4 delicate arm tendrils reached toward her in a gesture universal enough to recognize as desperation. You came from the stars. The child's voice translated through Ileana's neural implant with a musical quality. Please help my mother, Vila, her body won't stop shaking. Ileana knelt to the child's level, her heart clenching. What's your name? She asked softly. I am Thalia, the child responded, tiny tendrils curling anxiously. The elders said humans have powers beyond our knowing, that you might save us when our own healers cannot. Before Ileana could respond properly, Thalia grabbed one of her gloved hands and pulled her toward a dwelling that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of something like cinnamon and seawater. On a platform of living tissue lay a Velari adult, her body convulsing in rhythmic tremors. Alongside her stood a taller Velari with markings that suggested authority or expertise. I am Jorith, Chief Healer, he said, his deep voice tinged with both hope and skepticism. We have tried everything within our knowledge. The nerve death takes them all in the end. Ileana activated her diagnostic scanner, moving it slowly over the trembling form. The readings made her breath catch, neural pathways burning out in a pattern she'd seen before in historical medical archives. This resembles the tremor plague from the Altair colony, she murmured, recalling her xenopathology studies. Humans developed a cure nearly 50 years ago, but the pathogen must have evolved. Thalia clutched at her suit. Can you help her, please? Jorith's eyes depthless blue with flecks of silver locked with hers. Our ways teach that the body must heal itself, that invasive measures disrupt the life energy, but our ways are failing us. Something electric passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, that sometimes salvation required breaking with tradition. Ileana felt her professional detachment waver for a heartbeat. I need blood and tissue samples, Ileana said, pulling her medical kit from her shoulder. And I need to transmit data to my ship. We might have technology that can help, but I'll need to adapt it for Velari physiology. As she worked, Thalia remained beside her, watching with those universe-deep eyes. The child's tendril occasionally brushed her arm in what felt like reassurance, though who was comforting whom remained unclear. The tremors began in the distant settlements, Jorith explained, helping her collect samples. His touch on her equipment was precise, educated. By the time it reached the central communities, a third of our population was already lost. Ileana's scanner completed its analysis, projecting a holographic representation of the virus, crystalline and beautiful in its deadly efficiency. Commander, she called through her comm, I'm sending preliminary data. This is similar to the Altair Neurexin, but it's targeting completely different neural structures. The Velari nervous system is plant-based rather than electrochemical. As she spoke, Vila's tremors intensified. One of her tendrils reached out weakly, brushing her child's face in what was clearly a gesture of love. She's getting worse, Thalia whispered, voice breaking. Ileana stared at her readings, then at the suffering mother, and finally at the child's pleading eyes. In that moment, she knew this mission had just become personal. Quarantine protocols be damned, she couldn't stand by and watch as another parent was lost, another child orphaned, not when she might have the knowledge to prevent it. I think I can help, she said, determination hardening her voice. But we'll need to act quickly and I'll need your complete trust. Jorith's tendrils extended toward her in what her translator interpreted as a profound gesture of respect and desperation. We place Vila's life, and perhaps all Velari lives in your hands, Dr. Ileana Mercer of Earth. The weight of galaxies seemed to settle on her shoulders as she began to work. The makeshift laboratory Ileana had established in the corner of Vila's dwelling buzzed with activity. She had converted her standard field kit into an advanced diagnostic center, with holographic displays showing complex molecular structures rotating in the air. 26 hours had passed since her arrival, and she had not slept. Your body requires rest, Jorith observed, entering with a container of luminescent liquid. This nutrient solution might help sustain you. Ileana accepted the drink gratefully, her eyes never leaving the molecular model of the Veleri neural pathways. Human bodies are remarkably stubborn, she replied with a tired smile. And I've worked under worse conditions. The liquid tasted like honeyed mint with an electric undertone that immediately sharpened her senses. She raised an eyebrow in surprise. A mild neural stimulant, Jorith explained, safe for human consumption according to your database. Their fingers brushed as she returned the container, and Ileana noticed the subtle illumination that pulsed along Jorith's tendrils at the contact. The chief healer quickly withdrew, his normally composed features showing what she interpreted as embarrassment. The database doesn't explain everything about human physiology, she said softly. Just as I'm finding it doesn't tell me everything about Velari. Before Jorith could respond, Thalia rushed in and pressed himself against Ileana's side. The child had barely left her vicinity since her arrival, as though afraid she might disappear if he wasn't watching. Is my mother getting better? He asked, staring at the incomprehensible data streams. Ileana gently placed her hand on what approximated the child's shoulder. Not yet, but I'm understanding more every hour. Look here, she pointed to a section of the neural map. Your people's nervous systems are beautifully complex, part electrical, part photosynthetic. The virus disrupts the light processing pathways. Our ancestors evolved to absorb stellar energy, Jorith explained, moving closer to examine her findings. We don't just see light, we metabolize it, communicate through it. Which explains why the virus is so devastating, Ileana mused. It's not just causing pain, it's literally cutting you off from part of your existence. She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the virus structure. What's fascinating is that humans encountered something similar on Altair colony decades ago. But our nervous systems are purely electrochemical, so the virus affected us differently. Thalia looked up at her with those nebula eyes. Did the humans die too? Some did, Ileana admitted gently. But our scientists developed nanites, tiny machines, that could repair the damage and protect against reinfection. Jorith's tendrils stiffened, introducing artificial constructs into the body. Such approaches conflict with Velari healing traditions. I understand, Ileana said, but sometimes tradition must evolve in the face of new threats. She hesitated, then added, why didn't you request help sooner? Our records show the epidemic has been spreading for months. A shadow passed across Jorith's luminescent features. The Council of Elders believed it was a test of our spiritual strength. By the time they acknowledged it was beyond our abilities, many settlements were already lost. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent beeping from Ileana's comm device. Commander Paz appeared as a small hologram, his expression grave. Dr. Mercer, orbital scans show the infection spreading to the eastern continent. We've lost contact with 3 more settlements. Ileana felt a cold fear settle in her stomach. How much time do we have? At current infection rates, 3 weeks before 50% of the remaining population is affected. After the commander's image faded, silence hung heavy in the room. It was Thalia who finally broke it, his voice small but determined. You'll save them like you're saving my mother, right? The innocent question pierced Ileana's heart. She hadn't told the child that her saving was still theoretical, that her proposed treatment might not work at all. I'm going to try, she promised, knowing she shouldn't make guarantees but unable to crush the hope in those alien eyes. That night, as Solara 7's 3 moons cast prismatic light through the crystal dwelling, Ileana worked feverishly on her simulations. The nanite technology that had saved human colonies would need radical redesign to work with Velari physiology. Each failure in the simulation represented potential lives lost. She didn't notice Jorith's return until his shadow fell across her work surface. You haven't rested, he said, concern evident in his melodic voice. Neither have you, she countered, nodding the dimmed luminescence of his skin, a sign of fatigue she had learned. I've been preparing the sacred waters. If, when your treatment works for Vila, we must be ready to adapt it for others. Ileana looked up in surprise. You're accepting the treatment, even though it goes against your traditions. Jorith's tendrils moved in a complex pattern that her translator couldn't quite interpret. When he spoke, his voice carried new depths. I've studied your medical archives since your arrival. Your people once believed illness was caused by imbalanced humors or angry deities. You evolved beyond those beliefs when evidence showed better paths. He moved closer, his bioluminescence brightening slightly. Perhaps it is time for the Velari to evolve as well. Something unspoken hung in the air between them, a recognition of parallel paths, of boundaries crossed. Ileana found herself acutely aware of the alien beauty of his features, the intelligence behind his eyes. The moment was broken when her simulation chimed with success. Both turned to see the holographic display showing nanites successfully repairing simulated Velari neural tissue. It worked, Ileana breathed, barely trusting the results. From the doorway came a small voice, then you can make my mother's shaking stop. They turned to find Thalia, who should have been sleeping, watching them with desperate hope. Ileana and Jorith exchanged a glance loaded with both possibility and apprehension. Yes, Ileana said finally, we're ready to try. As they prepared for the treatment that might save not just Vila but an entire species, Ileana felt the weight of worlds on her shoulders, and the unexpected comfort of knowing she no longer carried that weight alone.